Very natural to ignore the camera that's right here.
Should we do a tukutendeza handshake?
I say hello, welcome.
Oh my God.
Welcome to Dash Festival.
Listen, I can't stand it. How are you?
I'm happy.
Yeah?
I'm happy. I'm settled into myself. I am grateful. I'm extremely grateful. This is such a weird time to live through and to have like food on the table, shelter over my head. No one in my family has been sick.
Listen.
It's really like I wake up and count my blessings.
Listen. Yeah.
That's really the mood right now.
Yeah, because like even for me, I have family members who are like in, you know, like when people are over 60, the whole COVID thing is a lot rougher.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm
heightened.
always just, so I've gathered them and told them things like, please kindly, you will get a pneumonia vaccine because you have to do that, you know. But yeah, it's really amazing that everybody's like fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. And I have friends who've lost like parents. So I get that it's for real.
Yeah.
And it's not to be taken for granted that my mom, who's over 60, is in good health.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also like, because of the way things are like up and down, it's like people can leave, people don't have to leave. It's
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So it's like also trying to gather them so that msitoke sana.
Sana.
Yeah.
Tuko kwa COVID.
Yes.
Kipindi cha COVID.
Jesus.
This is the topic in our family WhatsApp group. Katika kipindi cha COVID.
Wow. I mean, I guess there's 1,000 things that I want to talk to you about today, and
Cool.
I think it would be great to just kind of start with the elephant in the room so that we can just kind of sit with it for a little bit because it's there, right? And the elephant in the room being this whole kind of issue with sexual harassment in the music industry, and by extension within the arts, because it was also coming up within film.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I mean, the place to start is, what do we do with the people who have suffered such harm?
Yeah.
What do we do with the people who've survived harm? Because there's also people who haven't,
Yeah.
you know, and that when we start hearing the stories of everybody, we're hearing the stories of the people who've survived, and sometimes even the stories of people who've not necessarily managed.
Yeah.
And that also has its own, it also has its own deep tragedy.
Yeah.
And so I guess like maybe the thing to begin with is like, what do you think are tangible ways that we can support, you know, survivors of sexual harm and violence in this kind of place where it's like systemically almost entrenched, you know?
So one of the things I've been really thinking about and reading about in the recent past is mutual aid, right? And mutual funds. And I really think that that's a tangible thing. I know many women who, you know, have wanted to have a session, didn't end up doing the session. The story as to why the session didn't happen as it should have happened. So there's a real loss. I think there's a calculable loss of income, of time. And those things can literally be calculated in money.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a first thing that should happen. The idea of mutual funds to allow people to do the work that they were going to do, which isn't to say that now, you know, that if you get that preferential, and it isn't, treatment.
Yes.
That now your work is going to be the most bomb. It's to say that you deserve a shot at making the work that you had intended to
like
make.
You deserve a shot to like walk into studio, walk onto set,
Absolutely.
Walk wherever it is.
Do the thing.
and not be abused. when you're trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I see that in the music industry, it's in some ways easier to solve than say in film, where you have so many interconnected parts, and generally a person cannot make a film by themselves.
Right.
I mean, you can, but generally it's not what happens.
Yeah.
In music, you know, it could just really be you and the producer.
It really could.
So if there's money, you can literally just go to another studio and literally do the music. I think that I would like that idea to also be adopted by statutory bodies. So Camp, Prisk, MCSK, the theory is that after they collect money and disburse to members, there's a bunch of money that's never disbursed, either because low registration of members, it could also be a lack of information. Anyway, the point is that they always end up with just a bunch of money sitting in their accounts. And I think it's 3 years. If after 3 years the money has not been claimed, it just goes to the organization to do whatever.
What?
So I think it shouldn't go to the organization to do whatever.
No, there's so many other things that actually need
absolutely
doing.
And this would be one of the things that we would say that this is money that is going, you know, and its work is if, you know, there's a complaint on record this is a person who deserves a shot at their money. I think it then allows all of us who are members of those bodies to sort of step back and be like, yeah, actually, sexual harm, the ruin shouldn't be carried only by the survivor.
No, absolutely not.
All of us should bear the burden of the survivor. And money is a very tangible way to survive. It's definitely not the most eloquent or best solution. The best is please don't just harm anybody.
Actually.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to survive life. Can I just live it?
Yeah.
But in the event that you are in that situation, the artist community should make funds available for you to continue doing the work.
There's actually something really interesting you said as regards like mutual funds, which kind of harkens and also kind of tying in all the statutory bodies, because we all want to pretend that this is one of those things that you solve as individuals,
Yes.
and it's not.
It's not.
It's absolutely not.
And I think that's one of the things I've also seen and I've really learnt during COVID from just observing things. You cannot solve societal issues at an individual level. You have a role, but it is not your burden to solve.
Absolutely.
And actually, by trying to solve it individually, if we said, for example, we should just create like a fund for well-wishers, it shouldn't be well-wishers.
No.
It should be statutory bodies, because you're acknowledging that there is harm that is being created, and you're saying as part of solving, there's a part that is the law, but there's a part of like the immediate things that the bodies can do.
Yeah, because there's law and then there's people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really, and I've been reading also quite a lot on like Kikuyu's pre-colonialists, just to understand actually who were we before other people told us how to imagine things. Compensation was always in material things.
Yeah.
So yes, there'll be like all the other things that could happen, but there will always be a material.
There's material exchange.
There's a material outcome.
Yeah, and that of course these things are usually framed very patriarchally, and that these kind of material exchange, people would come bring goats to your father or whatever, and that it's very cross-cultural, because you find these things happening in a bunch of other cultures.
Yeah.
It's also quite religious.
Yeah.
So you find it popping up, Old Testament, where somebody is told, so now you have to marry her, make an honest woman out of, as though anything that happened before that was honest,
Indeed.
But yeah, absolutely.
But there's something to be said for when you have caused harm.
Yes.
And the harm can be calculated. There was a loss of something, a loss of opportunity,
Yeah.
a loss. There's an actual calculable loss.
Yeah.
We just have to feel that loss.
There's something really interesting about that, because it's also made me start thinking about the payment of a fine, because that's the same thing that's rooted in, that there's a loss, and so we're giving money
We're giving
of a
money,
kind to
yes.
stand as a symbol of
Exactly.
that it's supposed to be punitive.
It's punitive.
It's supposed to be punitive.
And there's no justice. If you stole my cow, and then we have found that you stole my cow, and then we send you to jail, I still don't have a cow.
You still don't. And also that fine is paid to the government. It's not paid to me.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what is justice is give me back my cow.
Actually.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then there's some social sanctioning that happens for the thief of the cow.
Yeah.
Similarly.
Or like if the thief of the cow is those people who like have a whole reason why they stole the cow, then people listen to that, and then
Absolutely.
now we,
Absolutely.
And that even the cow is a terrible example, because like people are not cows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I wanted just to say that even at the most like basic level, we have a basic understanding as human beings that if X is lost, X is replaced.
Yes.
If we're able to think about that in cows and in bank accounts we should be able to think about survivors of sexual abuse.
Yes.
Because there's an opportunity cost there.
Yeah.
There's a true loss.
Absolutely. And that also at the same time, you can break down the cost of the things they need.
Absolutely.
Because those things are tangible.
Absolutely.
If you need studio time.
Absolutely.
You need to go to a therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then I would say you could also, if you wanted to push the envelope more, and why not? It's yours to push. You could also say then, as part of affirmative action, people who are programming work, so, festival producers, event producers, that there's a quota that you must fill for people who had been, who these opportunities were lost.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, that's the equalizer. The person was trying to make work to then put to people.
Yeah.
So support their whole process. Now, if the work is good, if it resounds with the audience, that's completely a function of the artistry.
I think this ties to like the stuff that you've been figuring out around creating enabling environments.
Absolutely.
And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. What does that entail for you? Like at its most basic.
So the thoughts are multiple as as I was thinking about this problem, because this is, I think maybe at the beginning of the year, pre-pandemic, I had come to the conclusion that believing survivors is, it's necessary but insufficient. So what are you going to do? So then I thought, how do you think about this problem on multiple levels? So there's a question of, so survivors, well, I think tangibly put something back that was taken away, allow them to do their work.
Yes.
Then there's the other spectrum, which is, okay, what are the gray areas that allow for abuse and harassment? And it's very important that I say, I'm not trying to suggest that if you create systems, abusers are not going to abuse, because abusers abuse.
Yes.
But I am saying that 12 years in the industry, I've seen so many gray areas that lead to harassment, abuse, loss of rights, authorship rights or composition rights. So these gray areas around, if I'm given free studio time, how do we speak about? So then I was like, no, actually what we need to do is to, on one hand, there's a bunch of education that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Just because you've been given studio time for free does not mean that you have surrendered your rights to the work that you are producing. You must be empowered to negotiate the terms of this free arrangement. So I think that there's something to be thought about there. There's something to be thought about conduct of studios. So in all these years I've been in the industry, nobody has ever proposed a theory around what does that studio environment look like. If you work in a corporate, it's part of your contract. You sign a code of conduct, a code of ethics. Our industry doesn't have a code of conduct or ethics. So everything is just gray. And I remember in my earlier days, I'd find it so strange that you'd walk into a session and find that the session had like 99 humans in the room with artist X. For some people, it gives them energy. For me, I'm like, nimekuja kazi. Kama wewe sio producer, out. I felt empowered to say that because I always paid for my sessions, right? So I always felt like the client has the say about the environment.
I see what you mean, because now if somebody is not paying for their session, then literally the producer can do anything they want.
First, the producer is only going to give you the free time of the studio, the time that has not been scheduled for other artists.
That's the time that other artists haven't bought.
Correct.
Right.
So it can be any AM or PM. You don't really have say. Then also because it's their studio and their terms, if they have like some homies in the corner like drinking and running a commentary on life as you're trying to write your lyrics, it's you who has to accommodate the situation. You come out and find a corner to sit in and write. And I'm like, actually, no. Studio should just have conduct, a code of conduct. And it's not to say that, one version fits all, but it's to say that these are binding principles. How many sessions is a session? When does the work get delivered? What are the terms for the work to get delivered? Spelling out clearly what is harassment, what is abuse. Yeah. In this contract that, producers and artists are bound by. And also that people should be able to come and report if there's something that's... Absolutely. Or they ask questions. It's like, this doesn't feel... and then people work to accommodate them. So the partner we've been trying to figure out, legally is what are the provisions within the law that then can support this action so that an industry doesn't adopt the idea of a code of conduct, but a code of conduct can then be enforced because there's no supporting law. No. So that's a thing I've been thinking about a lot. Another thing we've been thinking about a lot is a listing. And I know it sounds kind of mediocre, not mediocre, basic when you say a listing. Yeah. But this is how the Whisper network works anyway. Other girls tell you, don't work with person X. So we kind of already know. So I say, why don't we formalize this knowledge systems, right? Because X number of women tell you producer X is going to beat you, right? So like that's one of the things, one of the women we're working with. Pause. Is there, like, for real, there are producers who are known for being physically violent? Literally one of the reasons. What? One of the things we discussed in our first session for Hottest Songs in Kenya, our Kachama for Babes, is this producer who got angry because the Shari wanted a change. So she did the first recording. She came back to the session. So this was a session for clarifying, correcting. The guy got pissed off, said getting like visibly agitated. Wow. Escalated, locked the door, took things, said throwing them at her. Locked the door. Sis, okay? This story was corroborated. Corroborated, yes. Another artist who experienced exactly the same thing, right? So it became a scuffle. She was properly afraid for her life. Yeah. When the guy went to pick, she thinks he went to pick knives.
I'm sorry?
Correct. She scrambled for the door and opened. But when she escaped, whatever he was hurling, he ended up hurling, I think, a mug. So she was ducking as she's running out of the door, so the mug hits the door across.
What?
So the guy was also coming out, right? So Zeshari just runs to her car. The guy now she's locked her car, she's shaking, right? Properly. The guy comes, turns out he's a cop, some CID guy. It's like, hey, madam, nini imeendelea? So now she's explaining what's happening. The Wachi has come, like, I don't know, like another neighbor. And then the guy's like, huyu anakuanga hivyo.
I'm sorry?
The cop. Huyu anakuanga hivyo.
You know anakuanga hivyo as it's like a thesis.
So
because
tufanye aje?
That phrase is used on so many abusive people. That's anakuanga hivyo.
So, as she's telling me this story, even now to talk about it, just enraging me because I'm like, you see, this is a perfect example. So which is the justice that who should Zeshari go to for that situation to be solved?
Yeah.
The neighbor knows that this guy is abusive, which means he's seen it before.
Yes.
How does he know? How does he know?
Yeah.
As the neighbor, how do you know?
Oh my God.
You must have seen it before. And you're a cop. And this guy continues to prosper. So these were some of the things we were like, okay, we already know these are the things that are happening in our industry.
Yeah.
So what do we do about this? Do we make a listing where we can say, to be on this listing, X number of women, queer, non-binary folk have been able to say, yeah, that producer is not bad. That producer is, utapata your work on time. You will not be harassed for sex, for getting your work. There's a certain criteria that we can develop that just allows people to say, yeah, these ones are legit.
And I mean, it might be low bar criteria because you are not harassed for sex while you are recording. It's a very low bar. You know?
Incredibly so.
It's the lowest of bars.
Somebody didn't hurl a knife at you in the session.
Oh my God.
Right? But if you think about it, it could force the hand of, younger producers who want to get on the listing. One of the things is diversify your clients.
Yeah.
Right? That's okay. If they don't want to come to you, make the beats for free and invite women, invite queer artists, invite non-binary artists, build out your portfolio. So these are some of the things. So I started to have these thoughts, and I brought in some women who are ranked in the industry because I'm like, this is also an industry approach.
Yeah. Because it's not individual.
It's not individual. No. This thing is not about, my personal experiences, which incidentally have all been quite positive. But I recognize I'm the unicorn in this industry.
Right. Because not everyone has positive experiences.
Majority of the artists that I have encountered, have had discussions with, people have a story. Hey, that guy. So I'm like, okay. So we just formalize this WISPR network and think around the legality, the framework.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that if you're not on this list, you're an abuser. It's saying work hard to get some referrals to get onto this list.
Yeah.
And I think about
the burden of proof that you're not harmful is higher.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I want this to be countrywide. I'm always thinking, if I'm a queer artist in Maralal, where am I going to record? So I also want it really in my ambition is that you should just be able to, like an app, like Studio Near Me. And it's like, ting, 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 these studios are safe or they're verified and the people at this studio, they're professional and they adhere to a code of conduct. It sounds a bit utopian, but is it really?
I mean,
is it really?
I think the issue with utopias is that when you compare them to how desperate the situation has been, how dysfunctional it has been, then the utopia really seems out of reach.
Indeed.
But when you realize that actually the thing that you're asking for is that people can come, record, and live.
Imagine.
Safe.
And get their work on time the way you guys agreed.
It's such a low bar.
And then
so also, to be fair, it's not a utopia.
That you wrote the split sheet in studio, so we're not confused about who authored, who performed on it, so that everybody's rights are recorded. Surely. I don't think we're asking for
No.
It's not a lot.
No. I think a utopia would be that somebody else is paying for everybody and then the artists come in for free. That's a utopia.
That's utopia.
Yeah.
This is artists who already want to pay for studio time or who are happy.
Who have found money somewhere for studio time to be paid for.
Absolutely.
Do you want to cover your legs?
I may, please, if it's okay, if you can see it. Okay. But I feel
So Muthoni, I think what I'm going to do, because my questions were many, I'll pick two
such good
from
questions. Exactly, such good questions.
Oh my God!
I can't believe these guys are just here cutting your raha.
No, but they're not. To be
Indeed,
fair. To be fair. There are many overlaps.
Indeed.
I think I want to ask you two questions, and this kind of session, this kind of segment of the conversation is called Beyond Love and Light.
Indeed.
You know, and I really, really loved your session with A-Star, who of course is also phenomenal, and this kind of light that he's bringing into all these spaces that where things were dark, things were unsaid,
Absolutely.
Things weren't necessarily. And I wanted to ask you like two kind of questions that are sitting together. The first one is, what have been the best collaborations for you? What has made them juicy? What has made you feel like deeply aligned with where that story was going, you know?
So I'd say, that's a really good one. First, the collabs with Squad. Blinky, Kagwe, Fena, Mayonde. Such an interesting mix of human beings, such interesting perspectives. When Squad got together, Kagwe was signed. Fena was making some decisions about the kind of material she wants to write. So they used to say that coming into sessions with Squad felt like therapy. And for me, that was amazing. To be in a room with peers, and that you can appreciate one another, and that you can push each other to be better. And I'm always screaming at Fena, boring! And Kagwe, you know, we brought this rule for like, don't just say things, be thoughtful about the thing.
Like, don't say it was nice.
Don't just say things
Nice.
to feel like bars, you know. And just that critical, creative challenge and the bringing of the stories. I really love that collaboration. And then just this week, we actually wrote a verse for Benso with Fena and Zeshari, who's a beautiful new generation upcoming female artist. Amazing. But the thing that I really enjoyed there was the perspective, you know, when you're invited into a song that the boys are so pleased with, you know, and all of us, we could just see the gaps. We're just like, yeah, but where's the woman's part in this story? And then to level up, like we bodied the song, that was really fun. The three of us just like pulling together and being like, yeah.
There's something really beautiful about like the ways in which you like push and tug. So there's a tension, but it's a beautiful constructive one.
Absolutely. And I think that there is no true creative work that can happen without that tension and like really query what's the perspective you're bringing. Why are you saying what you're saying? How will this thing age? Like 20 years from now, is this a star number on your discography? 5 years from now, when you meet your idol, does your idol tell you this song inspired them? And I feel like this is the kind of fire you need under your ass to not just become a complacent artist. And I really feel that strongly because we're also going to be the first generation of artists for life, I think. So it's on us. It's on us to morph. You know, if at the same time if we're the first generation who are seeing what hip hop looks like when it's 50 years old, right? So we will be the first generation, I think, of Kenyan art practitioners who don't retire from the industry. So how does this thing work if you don't push yourself to go beyond the expectation of the playlists today or the radio today? How do you push yourself beyond that so that the work lives and ages well?
I actually want to jump there and say like on the flip side of this tension is also all of the weird relationships within the industry that are kind of rooted in this person did this thing to me at that point in time, and then everything gets weird. And so then you're just kind of, there's so many limits because there's these people that you can work with, these other people that you can't work with. And so the thing that you did in A-Star's interview, which was incredible, was to point and say, this happened at this time with this person.
Correct.
And this is where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And we could see that even on social media, there were people who were coming up and saying, so this is what was happening in our lives at that point in time. And they weren't necessarily even like defending themselves. They were just coming to say, this is where the thing was. And also acknowledging that that moment is not where we are now.
Absolutely.
But we recognize that a wrong was done.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to just kind of commend you about being able to just bring a thing into the light.
I appreciate
and just
that.
kind of, and just kind of ask you like, what flipped or shifted for you to make you realize that this is a thing that I have to keep doing?
So I think the process of growing as a person, because of my many hats, I find that you just have to reckon with yourself all the time. When I get home and it's me in my house by myself, to really think about in the multiplicity of my roles, where was I a good person? Where was I an asshole? Where should I definitely do better? Where could I have uplifted? So self-editing, I'm really a Virgo through and through. My constitution is constant improvement. I am of the opinion that it can always be improved. Whatever, it can always be improved. So this this thing of improving myself and like coming into new light, giving myself compassion, forgiveness, asking forgiveness of people that I have wronged,
Right.
I find that it has allowed me to move lighter. And so I will for everybody to have this lightness of being, you know, but it doesn't come until you reckon with yourself.
Right.
And when you say the things, even as I reflect on the things I was saying, I'm not mad about them anymore.
No.
I've been able to work through that. But because we are going to be artists for life, and I want everybody to live a full, happy, long life, we are going to be entangled for some time to come.
Yeah.
So we need to build a habit as peers to speak honestly and clearly and to resolve things. And I think that if we're able to set this example for each other, even if it's just in this small world of music,
Right.
I think it could have a knock-on effect. We could create space for other sectors of the arts to be like, okay, how do we start to, you know, sort of reconcile with the things that we've done to one another? Because we are entangled.
Absolutely.
We are entangled. We are the community. We are the creative community of Kenya, of East Africa, of Africa. Where are we going but further with one another?
I want to talk about like, and I love that you use the word entangled. Like
Truly.
your your entanglement with your art and with yourself as an artist. And even to use a very beautiful phrase you used, which was reckoning with yourself. So like when you come home to yourself as an artist, as Muthoni, the drama queen, what makes you reckon with yourself to know this is the next song, this is the next beat that's hot, this is the thing that's next for me?
Yeah.
Because again, with a Virgo who's constantly improving,
Yeah.
so how do you know, okay, I'm done with this level, I need to level up?
Yeah.
And so how does the leveling up manifest for you?
That's a really beautiful question.
Bless.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm actually just going through that. We're just approving artworks now for the next project, which was meant to come out in 2020, but you know, here
Life.
we are.
Yeah.
So it will come out when it comes out. But one of the things I really felt became obvious and available for me last year when I was touring is that I'm an interesting African perspective. I spend a lot of time in my career in Europe, in French-speaking Europe. I found that I am not what they anticipate an African sounds or looks like in the most positive way. I found that there's a curiosity around sort of Anglophone Africans. I found that there's a curiosity about what it means to be a woman, to be have political consciousness, and to be African. And it really made me think deeply about this next work. I now know that I'm walking in as a hyper-specific understanding of Africa. I'm certainly not all of it, but there's a unique combination that gives me space to more than music.
Right.
I can be a way to see things. I can be a way that light comes into the room. So then I became very intentional about, like, last time's artwork, She's artwork was beautiful and amazing, but this artwork now has to be layered. What are the stories? What am I telling? In picking the name of the album, what does that mean in the sequence of the music? Do you have the feeling of the narrative that we're trying to bring? I found that I'm also occupying a lot more space now than I did. So I wasn't that willing to talk before.
Right.
I felt like I felt so misunderstood for such a long time. So resolving those things within myself, releasing, you know, what was misunderstood, accepting, allowing, opening of space I now occupy more space as a musician. I can now occupy a space also called a thought leader.
Correct.
I can occupy a space of an African woman, a global African woman. I can be rooted and global.
At the same time.
Absolutely.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now in Corona, I have also decided I can also do my Hollywood life here. I can also live that life, that thing that we're chasing. I can also just, to the extent that I can, what are the things that I can invent within my space and with the people who are here? Because in fact, we have, like, in my view, the best creatives in Africa, or some of the best creatives. They're just here, your pals, they're just there on your WhatsApp. You've just always been too busy traveling to ever sit down and be like, what would a considered piece of work amongst us look? So I'm really excited about those and collaborations with artists who are not musicians.
Right.
Because all art forms really have something that they bring. You know, when you work with a master photographer, you see images, light, light, you see light differently.
Yes.
Right?
You do.
You really do.
You really do.
When you are working with a master film maker, you understand a story arc completely differently. And these things then inform how I write, the stories that I want to tell, the perspectives. Being in rooms with other songwriters really challenges. It's really challenged me in this season. Like, why are you always writing your perspective? Can you write a hypothetical? That is a skill set that you need to have because,
Right.
Music is meant to help people with their lives, and there are very many situations in people's lives. So pick a situation and learn how to write backward from a situation, for example. So the expansion of self, and I guess I'm just so clear now in my mind, like, you get we are the ancestors. I don't know what else to say. I feel maybe because I didn't have the benefit of having these conversations with the ones who went before us.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. Life was tough. Everyone was just trying to figure it out.
They really were.
Nobody gave them something, so maybe they didn't know how to give us something. But now I'm like, another generation. If each generation of artists can't always start at scratch. You get who is the institutional memory, who
Right.
passes on
Right.
information, who tells people how to get there faster, smarter, easier. So we have to be the ancestors. So
I get that.
I'm very clear about that now in my music practice and in my art practice.
Okay. I think maybe then the last question that I'll ask you, because one of the things I'm realizing is that me and you can talk for really long.
Indeed.
We really can. The last question I'll ask you is, there's also this really interesting space that you occupy as a musical performer who is also a festival curator and also a festival owner stroke producer. And there's so many things that people don't understand about how both sides work.
Yeah.
And so what do you think that festival owners should know more about performers? And then what do you think performers should know more about festival producers and owners and curators, like the people, the production people?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think on the production side, as far as artists are concerned, I think just a lot more compassion for the human experience of that whole thing that is happening. It's in many ways hypernatural, in many ways it's hyper unnatural. And just having considerations for what is the human experience when they get here, what will they eat, will it be hot, where will they go to the toilet, when you put this thing here, how does this interface with, if they have 16 dancers, how do you allow for them to have a full artistic experience?
And this also extends to the audiences.
Correct. So I really think that I think a lot of festival producers, or at least people who are in this space and want to think, I would say take some time and really think about the human experience of the artist. And then there's the technical experience of the artist, right? There's nothing more frustrating than you guys are in the audience, you're hearing the PA, so everything sounds amazing. But us guys who are on stage can't hear ourselves. So the joy of doing the work is diminished and
It becomes so stressful.
and very unhappy. And it's a very, you live so unfulfilled. So I think that's a thing that, festival and event producers could really think about. On the artist side, I would think, to be more dynamic in your approach, when you're taking some of these gigs. I really want to say, manze, jipende, jijue, jiheshimu. When I think make this less of a quick bag. And what else could you actually get out of this situation?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we really think about at the festival is if you have to do an album launch, that shouldn't be your headache. We should produce that thing for you. Your problem should be like the artistic visual. So our job should be, how do we help you achieve your artistic vision, right? And I really think that a lot of artists underestimate the resources that would be available if they had considered conversations with the people who are putting music events,
Even though, to be fair, there's also a lot of disrespect because people sometimes will send out their rider and they say, I really need this,
Yes,
this.
yes.
And then life happens. So there's your rider and your ideal,
Yes.
and then life happens.
Yeah.
And so you have to make do. So
Yes.
then people end up starting to building up all these other things,
Yeah.
like the ones that we were talking about before,
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
things that need to be forgiven.
Yes.
Because me, when I was a small artist, I came and I gave my rider and then this happened on the
then
ground.
you didn't give me this, and then this other South African artist
got
got X.
Exactly.
Right.
And those are valid.
Absolutely.
Those are absolutely
And for
valid.
a long time, credit to my team 100%. We have worked very hard to be world-class. And the word world-class really means not Kenyan, not the bootleg version.
It's the worst.
Of a festival, right?
Yeah.
Not the ghetto that is that experience for artists. But just because of our experience working in multiple places, my experience traveling as an artist and like really moving in spaces that consider artists.
Yes.
So we really work hard to ensure that thing is understood. And because I am a performer myself, I understand this idea of like gear, schedules.
Yes.
So we really, I feel like that brings...
Mic checks.
Exactly. I bring that perspective to the team. But there are very many times, I see it with artists all the time, and I'm like, you should have 100% asked us to help your greatest vision, come to life, because we're already hiring the gear anyway. Why can't it be focused on you? Why can't it produce for you the highest outcome that you wanted for yourself? But a lot of people don't know that they're empowered to negotiate. People think that we should only negotiate for money. That's why you're being screwed. Have you seen how many people have come? Have you seen her sponsors? Have you seen how many? And it's like, no, bro, the math doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, that's not how the maths. So yes, negotiate around money, but negotiate around the things that you need for your artistic vision to come to life.
Because also, if I give my best artistic performance, then people will come to you and say, we need that person to perform again. And then you will be like, now that person has to come and perform again. Then me, I can come and tell you, actually, now that you're asking me again, I need to charge you more.
And also as the artist, you don't get your time back. Those X number of hours that had been assigned for me, you don't get your time back. So don't you want like the highest output for the time? Like literally, if it's this 60, 75 minutes set, don't you want that to be the most glorious experience of your life? So just negotiate for that.
That's beautiful. Last question.
Yes, ma'am.
What made you happy, happy, happy? Like when you woke up this morning and you're like, I'm looking for a thing to make me happy. What was that thing?
Seeing you.
Ah, stop it!
It's true. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Kat can tell you when we're doing the prep.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was so happy to be in a conversation with you.
Muthoni.
Such day I woke up, I was like, yes.
Thank you.
Njoki Day.
Thank you. That's a really lovely thing to say. Thank you. This was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had more time.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Dash Festival.
Thank
Bring
you,
us
Dash
again.
Thank you, Dash Festival, for this incredible conversation with this incredible person.
Yeah.
Thank
cool.
you.
Absolutely.